was recognized as the highest-ranking woman in SCLC in the 1960s. Dorothy was born on June 9, 1930. She spent her childhood in Goldsboro, North Carolina. After the death of her mother in 1934, she and her three sisters were raised by her father, a tobacco factory worker. Upon graduating from high school, Dorothy left for Shaw University in Railhay, North Carolina, where she paid for her tuition by working as University President Robert Prentice, Daniel's housekeeper. Dorothy and George J. Cotton were married shortly after her graduation, before she went on to complete her master's degree in both speech therapy at Boston University. Dorothy's involvement with the civil rights movement began in the late 1950s, when she joined the Gillfield Baptist Church in Petersburg and met its pastor Wyatt T. Walker. Under his leadership, he became involved in local protests targeting library segregation and eventually becoming secretary of Petersburg's Improvement Accusation. Then she finally met King at a dinner in Petersburg. She spent most of her time with the CEP, traveling throughout the South and conducting educational programs with Andrew Young and Septima Clark. Dorothy retired from SCLC in 1972. Following her departure, she held jobs relating to public service and social action, including director of the Federal Child Development Head Start program of the Jefferson County Committee for Economic Opportunity for Bridgenham, Alabama, and vice president for field operations at King Center in Atlanta. In 2008, the Mayor of Cotton's long-standing dedication to the cause of civil rights established the Dorothy Cotton Institute in Ithaca, New York. She also received the 2010 National Freedom Award from the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. In 2012, Cotton published a book recounting her leadership of citizenship education program. She died at her home on June 10, 2018.
Awakening to be manifest in political power. But I realized that people en masse saw the civil rights movement just as a bunch of marches. And I know from firsthand that that's not true. We had a major training program called Citizenship Education Program. The reason for doing this citizenship training was to help African American folk who were living at a time when we had what I call American-style apartheid, rigid separation of the races. So people would get to a workshop, and I'd take Mrs. Hamer, for example. Mrs. Hamer, I noticed you brought, looks like 8 or 10 people from the Delta of Mississippi. Would you tell us what's going on in your place? And introduce the people that you brought from that area. And she'd say, Ms. Cotton, I would love to introduce the people that I recruited, and thank you all for inviting me. But first, you all have to sing a song with me. And she'd break into a song, and everybody in the workshop would start to sing this song. I've been in the storm so long, I've been in the storm so long, children. I've been in the storm so long. And she was just about in tears, but so were we. But she really got turned on about gaining political power and started working there in the Delta of Mississippi to make sure that African American folk and everybody she could talk to understood political power. So by the third day in this 5-day workshop, people were singing songs of, I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. What the Spirit says do, I'm gonna do, oh Lord. I'm gonna do what the Spirit says do. And guess what the next verse was? I'm gonna vote because the Spirit says vote. I'm gonna vote because the Spirit says vote. And they would make up verses. That was a song that black folks sang in the churches. Yeah, I'll go to jail if the Spirit says jail. By the fourth day of the workshop, there were these songs of intention, songs of declaration that I'm not going to take the abuse anymore. The people who had attended the citizenship education workshops in large part were the folk who made up the big demonstrations that got a lot of news coverage, because people now are being introduced to political power and what it means to be a citizen in this country.